Welcome everybody to today's webinar. We welcome Story Tagger and Carl Hodler today, and we're talking about tapping into employee-generated content to solve repeat learning design challenges. And just a bit of housekeeping before I hand over to Carl and switch off my video. This session is recorded. The recording will be available to e-learning network members, and we're going to be passing along a copy to Story Tagger themselves. At the end of the session, there'll be a short survey. If you could participate in that, just let us know how helpful you found it to be. And I'll also be mentioning some of the forthcoming e-learning network activities that are going to be coming up, because we've got some very exciting face-to-face events happening in a few different regions later this month: Brighton, Manchester and Birmingham, which I'll give you some details of a bit later. And I have the great pleasure and privilege of handing over to Carl, the CCO of Story Tagger, and he's going to be sharing his sizable wisdom with us on the topic that I mentioned earlier, so employee-generated content and how that can help us out with regular learning design challenges. And Story Tagger, video storytelling platform that helps employees share tacit knowledge and develop key skills in the flow of work. So thanks everybody for coming. Thank you, Carl, and I'll pass over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that intro, Luke. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. We just had the little warm up around food, so I hope I've still got everybody and you haven't gone off to cook off some of those delights you were thinking of eating on the desert island. Yeah, I'm Carl from Story Tagger. I kind of don't really like job titles, so I just call myself someone who helps teams get started with workplace storytelling and Story Tagger as we got on there. So today, as Luke mentioned, we are going to look at how you can tap into employee-generated content and help solve some of those repeat learning design challenges. And I've got this quick agenda just so we know what we're doing today. I'm hoping everyone's going to help me out on the chat today. So type yes if that sounds good, or type lunch if you're not looking to get crumbs over your keyboard today. So what I'll do. Amazing. Thank you, everybody. Cheryl says yes. Heather says yes. Miles says yes. Luke, excellent. Good to know. I'll introduce myself, why I'm here talking about employee-generated content today. We'll dig into some of the challenges employee-generated content can support. We'll unpick what the creator economy is and how it needs to be adapted for learning. Then we'll look at how to avoid getting ghosted as a curator and some models we put around that. How we help our customers succeed, and then we'll have a look at how this sort of content is being used. So I'm thinking this is probably about 30 to 45 minutes. Throw in questions all the way through. Luke's going to interrupt me. I'll keep an eye on the chat. Thanks everyone who's promised to help me get through the session today. If I miss anything, we'll pick that up at the end. We'll have a little bit of time to run through questions. So I'm based in Brighton, which many of you will probably know as one of the UK's digital learning hubs. And who's coming to ELN's Brighton Unconference in a couple of weeks? We've got some great speakers there. Luke was mentioning that before. I think we've got Paul Service, Michael Ditchburn, Hannah Gore, guest speaking. If you're going to come along to that, type seagulls in the chat. If you'd like Luke to post a link to that one later in the end, at the end of the session. I've worked in learning for nearly 20 years. I'm not a learning designer, so don't expect me to be as smart as you guys. My first job in learning was creative director at Future Media. Does anybody remember Future Media? Solstra LMS. We're kind of really going back into the dark ages of learning there. Anyway, I helped set up that bespoke content studio, and just to give you an idea of how long ago that was, my first studio was lined with shelves full of laser discs. I don't know if anyone remembers laser discs in learning. Type Jaws if you remember laser discs in learning, which was the first movie to ever be released on laser discs. So we're learning already. Thankfully, we didn't have too many sharks in Brighton. In around 2005, I took a bit of a sabbatical from learning and got the lure of the entertainment industry and worked in digital marketing with brands like PlayStation, Channel 4, Disney, BBC, some really interesting projects. And that was around the birth of Web 2.0, first sort of social stuff going on, user-generated content. it was a lot of fun and I learned a lot, but the law of learning pulled me back. And for the last 8 years, I've been focused on helping enterprise teams curate workplace stories from employees. And I really love helping regular people share experiences around what they've learned, how they've solved a problem, where they're innovating, because it can be so transformational for people to see stuff that they take for granted. I mean, we all take so much of what we're great at for granted. And when that's wrapped into a narrative that presented as valuable information that other people can learn from, it can be a really transformative experience. I used to do this with a video crew, which is like step on from, laser discs, but still, it was expensive, time consuming, not very scalable. And so I had this brilliant idea. We're all carrying around this amazing sort of technology in our pockets. I thought, wow, people can just record videos. Why don't I just ask people to film themselves? I can say goodbye to cheap hotels, gallons of instant coffee, dry sandwiches, and my customers can save loads of money. It was, I thought, it's a genius idea. People do it themselves. That's got to work. And it was a truly terrible idea, because when people didn't have that scaffolding that the interviewer gave them, kind of to help them reflect on their experiences, and without the film crew to do all the nasty, gnarly technical stuff, nobody sent in any videos, nobody engaged. And really, that's why we developed StoryTagger, to help teams curate asynchronous video from subject experts and kind of employees, anyone really within an organization, to remove that cost of administration or all the time that gets soaked up with running real-time interviews. And yeah, I mean, video has been, a huge lifesaver over the last 18 months. And we've seen synchronous video emulating a lot of the face-to-face experiences that we've, had in classrooms and live sessions and stuff like that, to various levels of success. But as we move away from emergency mode, I think we need kind of longer term solutions. And this is where asynchronous video can really start to shine again. So just before I give away some free stuff, there's my LinkedIn profile. It would be fantastic to meet you on LinkedIn. Say hi, please do connect. And so for the free stuff, grab this URL. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a copy of this deck, and there's a companion engagement guide. So if you sign up, we'll send everything over in a couple of days. It's a great resource. It was put together by our CEO, Cheryl Clemens, who's much smarter than me, and there'll be a lot of really good stuff that I haven't got time to fit into this session. And if I think of anything as we're going, I'll put links into this deck as well, so you'll get all of those links as we're going. So good stuff. So before we dive into understanding what the creator economy is and how it can help, I wanted to share a few of the challenges instructional designers have told me about over the last 18 months. Now, it's quite a reasonable list, but you're probably scanning through that thinking, he's missed a really obvious one. Type in the chat what I've missed in here. What challenges you're bumping up against that I haven't heard about yet, or I didn't put on my list because I kept it all nice and neat and symmetrical. Go and tell me where I've gone wrong here. And you'll see there's a few common threads. So kind of engagement, holding attention, staying innovative, working with dry resources, keeping pace with modern trends, working with lots of subject experts, delivering high volumes of content. Cheryl's just added making sure resources are relevant and contextual. Yeah, absolutely. People need to know the absolute immediate value of stuff they're learning as well. Miles said gathering data to support design decisions. Yeah, absolutely, Miles. Being able to kind of really understand why learning support or interventions are important is really vital. Keeping systems training up to date. Yes, that's very true, John. I read a brilliant quote a little while ago that says we are all in a state of perpetual newbieism, and the sooner we kind of just accept that and adopt it with technology, the better, because then we'll be just open to learning all the time. Heather's mentioning learner and management expectations. Yes, Yes, absolutely. And I think, Heather, you'll see that bringing people into this process a little bit more is a great way of doing that. Teresa has just mentioned perpetual beta. Yeah, perpetual beta is really good. And Matthew mentions time to curate relevant and accurate materials. That's a really good point, Matthew, and that's something we'll definitely be digging into today. And a lot of this stuff also has the background of having a responsibility for implementing, changing, developing culture. And budgets decreasing, everyone's workloads seem to be increasing. I thought we were busy before the pandemic, but everyone seems to have managed to increase busyness by 50 to 100% since then. And obviously budgets always tight, maybe a little bit tighter now. So thank you so much for sharing. Oh, Colin's just added working with hybrid internal teams. I missed that, didn't I? Wow, that was a real elephant in the room that I failed to put on that list there. Thank you so much for sharing. Right, we'll come back to this later. But to start off with, this story starts with a post I spotted earlier in the year by Josh Burson. Sorry, I've got lost in my slides. There we go. Now, Josh was extolling the virtues of the creator economy for corporate learning. I don't know if any of you saw this. I'll put a link to this in the deck. This is one of the first things I'll make a note to add. So yeah, and you've probably seen Josh talking about TikTok as a learning platform. And in case anyone was thinking of typing Netflix for learning, I'm ahead of you. We're not going to fall into that rabbit hole today. Like I said, we're starting at the beginning of this one, and like every good story should, I really want to kind of unpick what we believe the creator economy is before we start putting that into the context of learning. So in the chat, let me know what you think the creator economy means. Who are these creators? Why do they have an economy? Put into the chat what you think. And it's kind of easy to sort of joke about the Netflix thing now. I think the whole XYZ of learning thing started off, with kind of good intentions, but it's so subjective. I don't think it's really helpful anymore. And I think just because something works in the consumer space doesn't mean it's automatically going to work for learning. What engages me at home isn't necessarily going to help me at work or help me learn. I think, from my experience, I think we have to build stuff from the ground up specifically for learning. It's okay to be influenced by consumer experiences, but we can't just copy them. Excellent. Some good stuff coming in. So we have YouTube bloggers. Yeah, absolutely. People who know stuff, sharing stuff, influencers, people who are passionate about creating things and want to share what they know. Absolutely, Tom. That is pretty close. Are we talking about the likes of Gary V? Kind of, yeah. Well, let's start with this one. Creators are able to apply their passion and creativity to make money. So that is, they're really into some stuff. They've got a lot of good knowledge, experience, but they can make money out of it. And as you've said, we've all seen the vloggers, YouTubers, Instagrammers, TikTok influencers having good times, making lots of money. And the second thing is that they can do this because every creator can now reach their target audience directly without the assistance of a third party. So the next question for you is, who has spotted the two areas of what this creator economy is that don't quite align with learning right now? So tell me in the chat, what is the rub? What is the problem with the creator economy in the consumer space? Yes, Tim is on the money with money. Cheryl's on the money with money. Anita is on the money with money. Absolutely. And, I'm not writing this off as a future state. And with all, the kind of Web3 stuff coming into play, this could all potentially come into kind of action, into play, but I think we're still wrangling with Web 2.0, so we can't really get ahead of ourselves now. No checks to see if it's accurate. Brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, you've absolutely got it. So most creators are motivated by making money. Now there's obviously some who support amazing causes or ideas, and while we can learn a lot from them, that they're not the creators that we're really considering in this context. And the second one was removing third parties. So, you guys really, as a curator or someone who validates what they're sharing. So they, they're letting people just communicate directly without any moderation. As I said, going back to that Web 2.0 thing that we're still wrangling with, we're not going to just let people kind of broadcast. So what is the creator economy for learning? And thanks for sharing all of those ideas, everybody. So this is how we as StoryTagger think about the creator economy for learning. We believe that subject experts use their expertise and experience to share knowledge and create value for themselves and their organization. So I think this is pretty uncontentious, and it's actually happening right now. You guys are helping them do this every day, and this is how a lot of content is already created. But if we move on to the next bit, this is where it gets a little different. Every subject expert can reach colleagues with light touch assistance from L&D. So this is where, Colin and John are talking about accuracy. Teresa's talking about evidence-based. This is where all that stuff can still stay in place, but kind of still maintaining and creating a creator economy. And our mission is really to digitize those water cooler moments that, where people naturally support and teach each other, the sort of stuff that we've been doing in the workplace for centuries. And I say to digitize that. And I think the reason that people like Josh get really excited about this sort of thing is a creator economy designed for learning has got the potential to be engaging, specific, personalized, low cost. It can deliver resources in volume, while still supporting complex culture, behavior change programs from the ground up instead of just from the top down. And it does align with some of those Web3 ideas and principles that are starting to surface around personalization at huge scale, intelligent agents, better knowledge management, and all that kind of thing. So that is kind of the basis for the story so far. How's that sounding? Is that all good? Type yes if I'm making some sense this morning, and I will crack on. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Tom. Kath, excellent, brilliant. Well, I shall crack on. And if you've tried to do this stuff before and get people engaging, creating content, and it's absolutely fallen apart, you think, this is never going to work, Carl. I've done it, I've tried it, it was a failure. I believe you, and as learning people, we appreciate there's no shame in failure. We all learn, and sometimes learn the hard way. And people don't just create stuff for you because you ask or you give them amazing technology to do it. I remember when I was doing marketing stuff, I designed a campaign for a Channel 4 TV show. It was about 11 years ago now. And it was a show about religion, and people could explore their beliefs in this really snazzy interface and create something which they could share. It got no engagement, like literally zero engagement. And that was a really tough project, post-project review to run through with the execs from Channel 4. And I really wanted to make sure that never happened again, and really try to understand why people don't engage. And this is a journey that I've been on for sort of many years now, trying to wrap my head around what motivates people to do stuff if money is not involved in that transaction. I keep this picture as a reminder of state I just really kind of want to avoid being in. And what we did was we worked out this simple model to help eliminate failure. And here we go. I call it the creator van. And it's very simple. And all you really need to do is help people answer these three questions. Why, if we go back to the earlier slide, you highlighted that money is a big motivator for creators in that traditional creator economy. And you remember, we removed money from the learning model, but because people will be expending effort, time, maybe kind of feeling they're risking reputation, definitely pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. This is all a whole lot of stuff that money's quite good at overcoming. So you need to help them understand why they should do this, because if it feels out of step or unnecessary, then they're not going to engage. If they feel they don't have permission or support, it's a big ask. Do they have what it takes? And this is so people don't turn around and say, well, why not ask Bob or Jenny over there? They're much better than me. I just turn up for work every day. I don't really know about this. I think, we've probably all heard those responses. And finally, how are they going to do this? What are you doing to facilitate this activity? How are you making it easier for them? And if you've tried to do this before and you've been ghosted, you probably didn't answer all of those questions. Does this ring any bells? Type ghosted if anyone has tried this before and they have, like me, absolutely not had any response back from asking people to create stuff. Yeah, Anita's seen the ghosting. Kath's been ghosted. There's no shame in it. This is, you know, there's a lot of things to do here to go engage people if we're not paying them. And next, what I'll do is I will share some ideas for how we can avoid this happening. Tom was ghosted, getting people to contribute to a poll. Oh my gosh, yeah, I hear you there. Yes, it's. I think I've even had polls on LinkedIn where nobody's answered. It's a horrible feeling. It's a really horrible feeling. Okay. Kath says lots of looking at feet. Yes, absolutely, Kath. Okay, so how do we stop people from ghosting these creator campaigns, getting people to make stuff? So the first one is what's in it for me, what's in it for my team, and potentially what's in it for the organization if there's a clear business objective that people can relate to. And on the first one, what's in it for me, we've got developing personal skills like digital communication skills, improving confidence, being able to share an elevator pitch, practicing workplace storytelling, developing more emotional empathy, building reflective practice into how people are working. I mean, these are all really critical skills as we kind of really rocket towards that WEF 2025 skills target. And, you know, today, this sort of stuff isn't just for leadership programs. Everybody needs to be upskilled. Organizational agility and productivity really depend on us kind of entire workforces upskilling. So this stuff there's a lot of individual value, and then there's helping others by sharing innovation, best practice, kind of just making people's lives easier. This is all good stuff. People will care about it. And there's a campaign running right now on StoryTagger, which is kind of a good gives a good idea of how this sort of thing works, and it's about helping people share their why story. And for this particular organization, the why story, the personal why story, is really critical to their success. So there's just under 500 people, I think, practicing these stories and sharing them so they can all learn from each other. So for this one, the personal why is I get coaching to help me learn and improve. I get a safe space to practice. I get to learn from others. The more kind of holistic view of that is I can see everybody else improving. I can, you know, maybe people are even learning from stuff I'm sharing. And, you know, kind of, if you look at it from an organizational perspective, I was chatting to Joe Dunlap from Toppers Pizzas a few weeks ago, and he told me that some of his managers were running onboarding programs in two-thirds of the time that he designed it to run for. Now, if any of you work in hospitality, you'll know that's a metric that really does deliver those big business benefits that I was touching on previously. So he got those managers who are doing this faster to record short videos on what they were doing differently. He distributed them on SharePoint, and within weeks, that improvement had rolled out through the company, delivering those real business benefits. And, you know, the managers of those franchise stores really cared about this stuff. So, you know, with having that kind of goal in mind, that organizational benefit was a real no-brainer for them. So those are some ideas on the why. Another one is around not organizational benefits, but organizational values, culture, mission. One of my favorites at the moment is curiosity, and it's used by quite a few organizations now. I think there's a working group as well of organizations who use curiosity as a value. But, you know, we know like Novartis, Kellogg's, Volvo, all sorts of teams use this. And I read a fantastic description of curiosity the other day. And it was like, curiosity is the engine of intentional learning. I thought that was really great. I don't know if anyone else has come across that one. Have you heard of that? The engine of intentional learning. And in these organizations, the idea of curiosity is helping people move away from sort of mandated to self-motivated learning, taking control of their own career journeys. And kind of what's exciting as well is that they've shown that curiosity can be cultivated in people who don't really consider themselves naturally curious. So it's a really great tool to help people push themselves out of their comfort zones. Now, if you haven't got curiosity as a value, you might have collaboration or supporting others to learn. And what that's about is really reminding people that organizational momentum is there to support them. So if they're pushing themselves out of their perceived comfort zones or feeling like taking risks, they feel that it's okay to feel like this. This is that they can feel, sort of vulnerable, and the organization will support them. So be sure to wrap anything in the organizational value mission into your messaging to help people kind of really see the purpose behind what they're doing. And City and Guilds have been using Storytagger repeatedly to support their culture, and they recently celebrated International Women's Day with storytelling, and they got women and men from across the globe to contribute stories about what International Women's Day meant for them, with an authenticity, honesty that would have been pretty tricky to pick up using Teams interviews or people self-filming without a scaffold. And it's a really amazing video they put together. They shared it on LinkedIn. In fact, I'll make a note to add that to this deck as well. So I'll put that video URL in this deck as well, so you can check that out as well. I think Anita shared the link that you can sign up to get these resources after the session. And finally, it's not just all of us who are overworked, everybody is. And that means, we're too busy for extraneous or additional jobs, Creation needs to feel part of the process. It needs to feel embedded in learning, the campaign, the programs, kind of whatever sort of experience that you're delivering. It's not mandated, but it's valued, respected, expected, and can be seen to be delivering value. It's just something that happens. And, you can help people see how their contribution creates the big picture, like those amazing beach huts on this photo. One would look impressive, but all of them together makes a really fantastic montage. And if you're wondering if this is Brighton, A, there's some sand, and B, the Regency Association have designated pastel colors for us to use on our beach huts, and I don't think any of those would pass. So another example, actually, is London Business School, who've been using stories from MBA students who are sharing their experiences about going into work placements. Now, this is a pretty competitive and challenging experience for the MBA students. They're going to work in like huge organizations like Google, there's a whole host of amazing large companies in London that take them on for work experiences. And so they're struggling with interviews, onboarding, fitting in, culture, kind of everything you can imagine. And they're recording structured learning diaries that help others going through the same experience. So I could go for an interview, kind of something really unexpected happens. I can kind of create a structured video blog about that experience. And then, my colleague who's going in for an interview the next day can watch that video and maybe not make the same mistake as I did. And it's also paying forward for future cohorts as well. So that experience that I'm having will be relevant and valuable to people coming through the MBA program next year. So it's kind of continuous improvement. And so those are some of the ideas around answering the why should I create, kind of really embedding that value from an organizational perspective, as far as the business benefits, the purpose, what's in it for me, what's in it for my team, and where the value is really sitting for everybody. The next one is, do I have what it takes? And I think most of us suffer from imposter syndrome at some point. And when you ask, and some of you who've asked people to do this stuff previously, you probably recognize some of these objections that people sometimes offer when you're asking to make anything. If you've seen any of these in the chat, say yes. I usually get imposter syndrome speaking to a room full of smart instructional designers. I overcome it with cheesy stock photography. But the thing is, I think it's around 82% of people struggle to codify work experiences. So it's no surprise really that people are nervous or lack confidence when it comes to sharing expertise at work. Kath said yes, Anita. has said yes. Lucy says yes. Lucy says, I used to be a science teacher. I've heard this a lot. Yes, absolutely. I bet you have. I'm always nervous when I deliver a first session. Yeah, I mean, it's pushing yourself out of the comfort zone is something that naturally makes us feel nervous, especially if it's around something that feels like a new behavior. You know, this is another difference between doing this as a consumer and in a work environment. You know, this isn't just like busting out some new dance moves on TikTok. You're asking people to present an experience in a format that other people will learn from. And if you think about that culturally, Lucy, you know, when it's like asking somebody from, you know, stepping behind the safety of a school desk and walking to the front of the class and teaching people. Nobody ever enjoyed doing that. Well, not in my class anyway. I mean, I know I certainly didn't. So, and you'll also find that even the confident people find that, you know, sharing something new, like sharing an existing story, is a lot easier than actually creating something from scratch without any scaffolding in place to help people create something. It feels quite hard. So pushing people out of their comfort zones, you know, when people say this stuff, just don't automatically, you know, go, oh, okay, it's no problem, because pushing people out of their comfort zones is important. And when we feel comfortable, we don't really feel the need to change. And when people can't change, our organizations are slower to respond. And I think we've all seen the heavy price some organizations have been paid for the lack of agility over the last 18 months. And most organizations are putting things in place to avoid that happening in the future. So this is okay. And subject matter experts at a charity, TogetherCo, who we supported over the first lockdown, they probably never recorded themselves on video. In fact, I'm pretty sure many of them hadn't before using StoryTagger. But during the lockdown, the charity desperately needs to onboard new volunteers. And before pandemic, they used to onboard volunteers through one-to-one web calls that each one would take an hour each. But they needed to onboard huge numbers of new volunteers to combat the problems coming through the pandemic. So they needed to innovate and find a new way of doing this. And what their learning designers did, they created frameworks to help their subject experts record video resources covering all the essential aspects of support. And I'd say this is why, while everyone was in lockdown, so everyone was able to do this asynchronously, fitting it into their own sort of busy schedules. And all that content was uploaded onto YouTube and used to onboard hundreds, I think, of new volunteers. And it was so successful, it's now been open sourced. So all charities in the UK can use it. People will overcome their fear, their perceived fear anyway, if you help and support them. And finally, am I able to create? Well, it's your job to make this as easy as possible for people, to remove the friction and create delight. So we found with video storytelling that the generic tools just really didn't support or provide scaffolding to help people share learning stories. And you know, we've all used technology that works well for one purpose that, you know, doesn't work for another. It completely falls over, like, you know, using a cheese grater to grate garlic. You know, discovering friction will stop people in their tracks, and with a cheese grater, that's, you know, it's quite a painful friction. But it can be the same with digital tools as well, and tech can kind of make you feel like that. And you know, being told to make something amazing but being handed a blank canvas and a biro feels pretty hard. And you know, some of my bugbears are platforms just give you a record button and a camera feed, or a share your thoughts button and a blank text area. You know, our people are too busy. They're not doing this stuff day in and day out. So they have to think quite hard about this stuff. And the two things that I really took away from the consumer campaigns that I worked on, because believe it or not, just if you've got a brand like Sony PlayStation, Channel 4, BBC, Disney behind you, it doesn't mean people are automatically going to create stuff for you. They still need to kind of run through these three questions to help them go through it, even for an amazing, you know, brand. It's your job to make creation feel 10 times easier than they originally expected it would, and for the results to be 10 times better than they expected. And if you can kind of put all of this together and really, as I say, delight people and remove friction, then that is where people have a really great experience creating content. So it's often kind of useful to see an example of what this looks like, because it can be kind of tricky to imagine what how this specifically works. So I thought I'd share how we overcame some of those generic technology problems with our platform StoryTagger. And as I mentioned, we used to go out and record interviews. We kind of worked out what the goals were, the objectives, put together kind of big question frameworks, did pre-interview calls, created personalized interview frameworks, went out and filmed, edited, distributed, all very expensive, very time consuming. Great results, but there's a lot of work involved. And many of you will have probably seen this yourselves over lockdown. You know, as you've been doing the same thing, setting up recording live Zoom or team sessions with subject experts, to embed on your programs. It's the same process. I mean, there's no on-site filming, but there is just as much admin. While it's made people easier to reach, it doesn't have the scale. So wrapping all of that into a self-service activity is quite a complex process. And, you know, we originally tried to do it with PDF guides, tutorials on YouTube, but kind of all sorts of stuff. But the cognitive load was just great. It was too much for people. And we failed the "am I able to create" question. Got ghosted, as you'd expect. And so what we did was provide a lot of guidance and support at each stage, get people just running through a very simple step-by-step process where the cognitive load's quite low, but the support and the confidence building is really high. And that's where technology can really play a big part in that, helping people feel as if they've got the capability, the domain expertise, everything they need to be able to do this. And for us, just like the one-to-one interview, and this, what you can see on screen, is one of our interview templates on the admin system. The structure of how we help people tell stories is the scaffolding that supports them reflecting on experience, being able to plan out their story. And you'll see that what we simply did was just break down a story into parts, which are like kind of chapters in a book, scenes in a movie. And you know, each of those parts has got a title, so that provides a narrative arc. We show that to people as a helicopter view when they come in. So, you know, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to share, you know, my experience around handling difficult conversations? I see those titles laid out in front of me, and I can start instantly imagining, mapping my experience onto that. So it's all about building people's confidence. To help them become creators, to help them think that they've got something of value to share. And then, you know, they can select the kind of prompts that go along with what they've their experience to help them tell their story. And actually, if I go to the next slide, there you go. Yeah, we can see that there's some of the prompts. They can make notes. They've got smart recording tools to manage all the sound, lighting, and basically, the technology deals with two of those three questions in the Venn. Do I have what it takes? Am I able to create? Leaving you with just one question from the Venn to answer. Why should I create? So that's quite doable. As a curator, you haven't got a huge amount of heavy lifting to do. And I think that's kind of how you need to be thinking about your creator experience with other tools that you're using, you know. And if you fail, work out which question you didn't answer, fix it and try again. Don't give up. This stuff is entirely possible. It's not completely straightforward or easy. You just need to work out how it's done. If you'd like to see more of StoryTagger, just jump on the website and set up a demo. I'd be really happy to show you around. But anyway, now we've seen how we can do this. I've shown you that it can be done. Even if you've tried it before and not succeeded, it is possible. Let's think back to some of those challenges we looked at and see how creator content can support these. So, you know, to support engagement or holding attention, you know, you do what Together Code did, get subject experts to create the content. You'll get specific language, real kind of real work examples, trusted faces sharing relevant information. We saw a great example from Verizon where they asked their senior salespeople to share sort of information around their ideal customer personas. One of them was a head of learning, coincidentally, and a lot of their field team had never spoken to these people before. So they just created some resources to help explain a bit more about what those customers cared about, how their technology solutions could support them. And it was a hugely popular resource for the field teams because they could just watch these videos and they'd get that language going into their heads before they went into the calls. And it's a really good example of how being agile around creating content can again have quite an instant and meaningful business impact. Reinforce the business benefit by getting stakeholders to share the why story behind learning. We see the Labour Party doing this quite a bit, actually, by placing short promo videos from stakeholders on the LMS. So, where the description goes, there's a video that goes on with like why this is important to the organisation. We spoke a bit earlier about giving people safe space to practice and share. And I mentioned that, the personal why story, but it could be diversity and inclusion or onboarding. And, we saw Adidas get their new starters for the Oxford Street store. Those of you in London will know just before the pandemic, Adidas opened an amazing new store on Oxford Street. And they asked people to share stories about the challenges they faced moving to the capital. I think we all know, London is a challenging place to move into from elsewhere. And they help people, by sharing these stories, feel part of a new family before they'd even receive their first paycheck. Working with lots of subject experts becomes possible because they're not requiring those like one-to-one conversations. Sort of similar to the Together Co story I shared earlier, getting a real diversity of voices, flipping classrooms with sort of icebreakers done in advance so everyone has a shared understanding and purpose of challenges. I mean, that can help, that can work in learning programs as well. Adding context to how things are done in your own organization is a great anecdote to generic content, and getting people involved in creating content and teaching others really supports embedding that culture of learning and actually showing the thing as well so people can really see it in action, and doing that in line with organizational mission and values as well. And finally, learning beyond content. And, again, remember the organization who were talking about, developing the personal why. The act of reflecting and creating really helps people develop some of those personal skills that we were talking about earlier. There's actually a lot more of this in the guide, and I'll share the link so you can get that later. So I think we're pretty much kind of running up to the hour. So we've covered quite a bit of ground, really. So here's a quick takeaway. If I can get this working. There we go. As Public Enemy said, don't believe the hype. Consumer tech is built for consumers, not for learning. It's true that we can learn anywhere, but kind of technology will get in the way if it's not designed for purpose. Remember that Venn diagram. Why should I do this? Do I have what it takes? Am I able to create? If your technology isn't doing most of that heavy lifting, you're leaving yourself with quite a lot to do there, and also quite a lot for the creator to do as well. If you really want to push the needle forward, don't stick to the safe stuff. Take risks, fail like I did. You learn pretty quickly. And as I say, when you're not getting the engagement you want, and you've got that model to help you fix this and work out how to do it, you can fix these problems. If you're not feeling uncomfortable, you can probably push yourself further. And yeah, get creative. Don't let the business get in the way. I mean, say we're all incredibly busy. But don't let get in stuff of things that you can be proud of. As learners, I think we always remember those really amazing learning experiences that we have. Be remembered. So that is it from me. Just a reminder of the free stuff. I've got a list of things here that I'm going to put into this deck, those example videos and the Josh Bershon piece and stuff like that. If you go to this URL, sign up, I'll give me a little bit to put this extra stuff in the deck, and we will get that over to you. Storytagger.com if you'd like to see Storytagger. It's probably me who do the demo, so now we've met, you don't have to be ready to buy it or anything. I'm really happy to just sort of run you through if you're interested in seeing a little bit more how it works, just in case you want to think about building that in sort of like reflective storytelling into your plans for 2022. And what else? There's my LinkedIn profile again. It'd be lovely to meet you on LinkedIn and say hello. So Luke, I don't know if you've been keeping a list of the questions that I've missed that we could run through.
I've been keeping track of the chat, and I think everything that's come up so far has been answered.
Wow.
Yeah, so well done there, and thanks very much, Carl, for running this session. If any of the attendees still have questions, please feel free to use the Q&A function or to just drop them into the chat. I'm going to release a we poll just a survey about this session in a couple of minutes, just after I've given a couple of notices. First one, again, thanks so much, StoryTagger and Carl. This was a fascinating session. Really great to hear of some specific examples and to really benefit from the experience that you guys have garnered from, developing this service and this app and working with so many different clients across multiple industries. The next notice is that this is an open session for the e-learning network with StoryTagger, and we've got multiple events coming up as the e-learning network this month, including, as has already been mentioned, a face-to-face unconference in Brighton, a face-to-face unconference in Manchester, and a bar camp in Birmingham. If you want to find out more about any of these events, just dropping a link in the chat for you to follow. And we also have another webinar tomorrow with Rob Hubbard from LAS. That is a members webinar tomorrow from 12 till 1. And all of the events on that page in the rest of November are free for eLearning Network members. If you're not a member, membership is only £29 for a whole year, and that grants access to all of these different events, as well as free mentoring and other benefits such as access to webinar recordings. And also feel free to continue the conversation on Slack, connect with people on LinkedIn, and keep the conversations going. And we've got one question coming through so far in the Q&A. That is, how do you share these ideas, and do you still use an LMS, Carl?
Yeah, it's a great question, and yeah, you can absolutely still use an LMS, and a lot of teams embed these stories into the LMS. So say if you're going out to subject experts, that can be embedded into a program. As I mentioned, the Labour Party use sort of stakeholder videos to reinforce the value and the purpose of the learning, to help people kind of contextualize what they're about to do before they start it. The Together Code program, I think all the stories, all the videos from the subject experts were in a learning management system. That someone from the team can correct me if I've misremembered that one. Yes, so you can kind of embed the video content straight into LMS. It depends what system you're using, really, and how you use video already. Oh, Cheryl has just confirmed that Together Code did use a learning management system with the subject expert videos for onboarding new volunteers. Thank you, Cheryl. So I hope that answered that question.
Fantastic. Well, I'm just going to end the recording there and bring the formal end of this webinar to a close. If anyone else has more questions, then please feel free to keep chatting. I'll keep things open for the next couple of minutes, but thanks everyone for attending. Again, thanks so much to Carl. Thanks to Anita and Cheryl from StoryTagger for helping to make this happen. And I hope everybody has a great day and has a delicious lunch after all that talk about food at the beginning.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for helping and contributing on the chat, everybody. It's been really lovely to meet you all. Thank you so much. Enjoy lunch.